Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we find ourselves as the three spirits of Christmas from the classic tale A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now you'll be taking Ebenezer Scrooge on a journey through Christmases of past, present, and future and showing him the consequences of his actions. Now hopefully you'll be able to help him change his mind before time runs out. Spirits of Christmas is a ghostly cooperative adventure card game for 1 to 6 players. It takes up to 45 minutes to play, is for ages 12 and up, and published by Humble Bard Games. Today we'll be doing a rule school where I'll teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rulebook yourself. So let's get started. Spirits of Christmas is a ghostly cooperative adventure card game where you'll take on the role of 3 spirits of Christmas from the classic story A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You'll be taking the old miser Ebenezer Scrooge on a journey through Christmases of past, present, and future, showing him the consequences of his actions. Players will be selecting actions but spending shillings depending on how far away from that action they are. And you'll be taking Scrooge to scenes like shadow scenes where you're trying to deliver all the virtues needed. And these might be any combination of contentment, compassion, and charity. In addition to moving Scrooge around, you'll be drawing cards to give yourself more options, or playing cards to help complete those shadow scenes, or allowing any player to give as many cards as they want to any other player. Some scene cards give you more shillings, which is hugely important because if you ever run out of shillings, you lose the game. But have no fear because 3 times throughout the game, you can use Scrooge's chains to add 5 shillings back into the supply. So let's see if you can cooperatively successfully get through all 3 chapters without running out of shillings. For the initial setup, you're going to place the Spirit Action Rondelle board like this in the middle of the table. Bring your attention to the bottom right hand side of the board. You do not want to have this showing because that is for the Counting House variant, which we're not going to be playing. So make sure your board does not have that symbol down there. Place the torch token just off the board in the upper left part there. For now, you're going to place all 20 shillings just above the board like this. Off to the side, you're going to separate each of the scene decks out. You'll shuffle each deck individually, and you'll also place their token close by. You'll also find the spirit deck that looks like this, shuffle this deck up and place it off to the side for now. Also off to the side, you'll place the Marley's Ghost card, the End of It card, and the 3 gift cards. Also off to the side, you can place the point cards and the 3 chain tokens. Below the action board, you'll place the bedroom card, and you'll place the Scrooge token right on top of it. Give each player a player aid card, and give the first player token to the tiniest player. And finally, you can place the reference card near the middle of the table where everyone can see it. The object of the game is to cooperatively show Scrooge the error of his ways, making him a new man. And you do this by getting through all 3 chapters of the game. Now the game is played over 3 rounds, or chapters. Now before we get into chapter setup, the first thing you'll do is read the Marley's Ghost card, both sides, aloud to the whole group. Then you'll either randomly flip a gift card up, or you can look at all 3 of them and choose one. Now each of these gifts are going to give you a special ability. They'll make more sense after you're done watching this video. But once you've done that, you'll remove the Marley's Ghost card and the other gift cards from the game because you won't need them. Now, each of the 3 chapters are rounds, and they're going to get set up differently. You're going to take the scene cards for that specific chapter. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to take the Christmas Past deck and the token. Now you'll place that Spirit's token in the middle of the Action Selection Rondelle board. Now the cards, remember you already shuffled this deck in the initial setup. You're going to place them face up below the bedroom, making sure that the bedroom is right in the middle of this, meaning there's 4 cards to the left, 4 cards to the right, and the middle of those 2 cards are right in the middle of the bedroom. Above the board, you're going to place 15 shillings. This was Bob Cratchit's weekly salary. The remaining 5 shillings are going to be set to the side as a discard pile. Now the Spirit deck, if you remember, was shuffled at the beginning of the game in the initial setup. If you're doing a future chapter, not the first one, you will shuffle all these Spirit cards into the deck again. Then you're going to deal 3 cards to each player if there's 2 to 4 players, or 2 cards to each player if there's 5 or 6 players. Now these Spirit cards are going to be in players' hands, and they contain different things. They have virtues like contentment, compassion, and charity. And they also have move values like 1, 2, or 3. Now you're going to be using these cards to take actions and complete objectives that you'll learn about soon. Now with the normal communication rules, you must keep these cards secret from other players. Now you're not allowed to reveal your hands, and you're not allowed to say how many cards of each type you hold. However, you can say how many cards they have in your hand. You can say how much contentment or compassion or charity you might have, like a lot or a little. For example, if you have a lot of compassion cards, you could say things like, I have a lot of compassion cards, or I have a little charity if you don't have that many cards of that, or I have some contentment if you have some of them, or you could say compassion humbug if you have none, because that tells everyone that you don't have any. But you're not allowed to say exactly which cards you have in your hand and what the values are. Now remember, the object of the game is to get through all 3 chapters successfully. So how do you get through a chapter successfully? Well, at the bottom, you'll see all of those different scene cards. Now there's different types of those scene cards. Now the shadow scene cards are the ones you're trying to complete in order to complete the chapter. And these have the different virtues on there, like contentment, compassion, and charity. So for example, in order to complete this specific shadow scene, you need to have collaboratively and cooperatively with everyone in the game play 2 contentment cards and a charity card underneath here. Now we're going to tell you exactly how you do this a little bit later, but you're trying to complete all 3 shadow scenes to complete a chapter. So how do we go about doing this? Well, starting with the first player going clockwise, each player is going to take a turn. Now the first turn of the chapter, the token of the spirit is in the middle. Now what you'll do is you'll move the spirit to one of the 4 areas on the action selection rondelle board to take that action. So for example, they might move it to the move section. Now for this first turn in each chapter, you always have to spend 1 shilling to move from the center, which is where it started, to any of the 4 actions. And when you spend a shilling, you take it from your shilling pile and you move it to the discard pile. You're trying not to run out of shillings because that's the way you actually lose the game. More on that later. Now when you take the move action, you must play a card, and you do that by placing it face up in the discard pile of the spirit deck. Now you're concerned with the movement number here, and this is a number of 1. Now if you don't have any cards in your hand, then going to the move action does nothing, and it's the next player's turn. Now moving 1 from the bedroom can allow Scrooge to move here or here, because these are the 2 cards that they can get to from the bedroom. So let's say that we moved him to this shadow scene card. Now when moving, you must move the exact number of the card you played, no more, no less, and you cannot double back. You have to keep going in the same direction. So if we right now, it was a new turn, and we had played a 3 card, and we decided to move to the right, we would have to move to the right 3 spaces, or to the left 3 spaces. But we couldn't double back. We couldn't go like 1, 2, 3, for example. Also, the cards do not wrap. So if we had a movement of 3, for example, we cannot go 1, wrap around all the way to the other side and go 2, 3. That does not work. So here, if I was moving to the right, the only amount I could move is 1, and I would need exactly the 1 card to do that. So I moved 1, and that's my turn. It's now going to be the next player's turn. Now after the first movement of the chapter, that token is going to be on one of the actions. Now in all future actions this chapter, when moving this specific token, you can move in either direction. You can move clockwise or counterclockwise, but you have to spend 1 shilling for each movement. So if I wanted to move to draw 3 cards, I would spend 1 shilling. If I were to move 1 to give, I would spend 1 shilling. If I was going to go here to play cards, I would have to spend 2 shillings. Now you can come all the way back. You have to move the token. But if you want to take the same action as it was, you actually have to go all the way around spending 4 shillings. And you kind of want to not do that, because running out of shillings is the way you lose the game. So let's talk about drawing 3 cards. In this case, they go here and they place 1 shilling in the discard pile, and they'll draw 3 cards. Now you'll simply draw 3 cards from the top of the spirit deck, or as many as possible if the deck runs out, because if it does run out, you do not refill or reshuffle the deck. That only happens in between chapters. Also, you have a hand limit of 7 cards. So at the end of your turn, if you have more than 7 cards, you must discard down so you have no more than 7. So let's say the next player spends 1 shilling and goes to the play cards section. Now you can only play cards where Scrooge is, and only if he's on one of the shadow scenes. And remember, the shadow scenes are the cards that have the different virtues on there, like contentment, compassion, and charity. Now that player can play as many cards as they want, but they have to play at least 1. If they don't have any cards, or Scrooge is not on a shadow scene, their turn ends and it goes to the next player. So this player played 2 cards. They played a compassion and a contentment. If they had another contentment, they would have played that too, and they would have completed this specific shadow scene, but they didn't have that many cards right now. Now if the next player had that contentment card, they want to play it, they would have to move all the way around again, spending 4 shillings to do so, so they might not want to do that. So this is where you talk with other players and decide, hey, does a player, not the next player, but the player after them, do they have a contentment card they can play? Because if so, I might draw 3 cards, or I might give. And again, by moving one space, we would spend 1 shilling to the discard pile. Now with the give action, any single player can give as many cards as they want from their own hand to another player. And those players, neither of them have to be the one whose turn it is that actually took the give action. It could be that person, but it doesn't have to be. And again, they can give as many as they want. But if they do give, all the cards have to go to one person. So for example, let's say a player had this contentment and they give it to the player whose turn it's going to be next. And they did that because they knew next turn, that player just has to spend 1 shilling to the discard pile to play cards. And they were able to play that second contentment, and now this shadow scene is complete. Now remember that the number on the cards have nothing to do with it, it's the number of cards. So 2 contentment, 1 compassion. So in this case, now that it's complete, these cards go to the spirit deck discard pile, and the shadow scene card gets turned over, and Scrooge stays on it, and now it's the next player's turn. So now that we talked about all the 4 actions, let's talk about the other scene cards. Now any cards you see that have coins on them are coin scenes. Now when Scrooge moves to these, let's say someone played move action and they move Scrooge 2, they must immediately enact this action. Now this says plus 2 coins. And so in that case you take the 2 coins from the discard pile and add it back to your supply. And this is going to be important because remember, if you run out of coins you lose. Again, more on that in just a bit. And once you've completed that action, you will then flip that coin card so it can't be activated again. Now keep in mind that some coin cards also allow you to draw a spirit card from the deck into your hand. Now let's just say Scrooge happened to be here and someone played a move action with the number 2. They want to move to this Torch of Plenty. Now counting face down cards, and Scrooge can even end. If they played a 1 move, it can end here, but nothing happens. It'd be the next player's turn. But if they played a move 2 and they move here, well, now you're at a torch scene, the Torch of Plenty. And the card itself actually tells you exactly what to do, which is place the torch onto its space on the rondel and flip this card face down. And so you go like this. And don't forget to flip over that Torch of Plenty card. Now what does this torch do? Well, any player, before or after their normal action, can use this torch to take any of the 4 actions without spending any shilling. And to do that, you simply would just move it off the board, use the action. Now there's 3 special spirit cards. All of them have the same icons on them like this. And on your turn, instead of taking your normal action on the rondel, you can discard one of these cards from your hand and take any action on the rondel for only spending 1 shilling. And that's great if you want to take the same action, because normally you'd have to spend 4 shillings to get around there, as I taught earlier, but you can just discard the card, pay 1 shilling, and take give, for example, if the spirit token's already there. Or for example, if we wanted to draw 3 cards, normally that would cost us 2 shillings, but by discarding that card, it only costs us 1. These special spirit cards can either be used in the way I just showed you, or they can be used as normal, but not both. Now you're trying to complete all 3 chapters to win the game, and to complete a chapter, again, you're trying to fulfill and complete all 3 of the shadow scenes. So if you've completed that 3rd shadow scene, even if there are cards that you haven't interacted with in the chapter, then you have completed the chapter. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit more about the money and how you lose possibly. Now, as you remember, as you're taking actions, you're spending shillings from your supply to the discard pile, and I've mentioned a couple times, the way to lose is to run out of money. However, there is a way to mitigate this. If you remember, there are 3 chain tokens that you put aside next to the point tokens. And at any time during the chapter, the group may take a chain token, activate it by placing it in between your supply and the discard pile, and adding 5 shillings from the discard pile back into your supply. But you should use these at the right time because you only have 3 of them for the entire game. And if you've used all 3 chains, and you need to spend shillings and you don't have enough, that's when the game's over and you've lost. However, let's assume that we successfully ended that chapter. Now, what you'll do is on the back of the reference card, there's actually a chapter scoring. And you're going to gain points for a few things. First, each coin card visited, which are all the flipped face down coin scenes in this chapter. Now, each of these cards are a point. On the back sides of these, there are 2 points. This helps you keep your score into 1 pile. You're also going to get a point for each coin remaining in your supply, and you'll get 3 points if the torch is still on the board, meaning you have not used it, but it was placed there. All players will discard their spirit cards in their hand, and any that were played underneath scene cards. They'll all go into the discard pile. You'll be setting up the new spirit deck at the beginning of the next chapter. You'll discard all of the scene cards for this chapter. If the torch is still on the board, you'll take it off, and you'll remove this chapter's spirit token from the board. Now in a 2 to 3 player game, you'll pass the first player token clockwise. In a 4 to 6 player game, The current first player chooses any player who's not yet had the first player token and gives it to them, and this helps them reward players who are contributing the most to the theme of the game. Next, you'll set up the next chapter, and you'll do it the same way that I taught for the first chapter. So you'll want to go back to the chapter in this YouTube video, which you'll see just below. You can click on that, and it will bring you right to the chapter setup section so you can set up the next chapter. If you finish chapter 3, you have succeeded in showing Scrooge the error of his ways, making him a new man. Now you'll take the end of it card and read it aloud to everyone, then you'll calculate your final score. Now you've gotten points throughout the game, through the different chapters, you'll add up all those points. Now to those, you'll add a certain amount depending on how many chain tokens you've used. If you didn't have to use any of them, you'll get 18 points. 1, 2, or 3, you'll get 12, 6, or 0 points if you used all of them. And then you add all those points together with your previous points, and you'll get a certain rating depending on how well you did. Now starting on page 19, there's different modes of play with different variants. These include different difficulties, different type of communication rules, a counting house variant that uses the opposite side of the rondel board and the additional board that was included in the game, a solitaire variant, and a story variant. Feel free to explore these on your own. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Spirits of Christmas faster than you normally would if you had to read the rulebook yourself. Now, if you have questions about the rules past what I've showed you in this video, then there's a link in the description below in this video. That's the best place to ask them because I'll be notified, but so will Humble Bard Games.